Alien girl had nowhere to go, then the human built her a home using scrap. The trade station Kelt 9 floated between stars like a quiet machine that never slept. Ships arrived, ships left, deals were made, and rules were followed. Everything had a place. Everyone had a purpose. Everyone except her. The alien girl stood near the outer corridor, holding a small bundle close to her chest. It contained everything she owned now, which was not much. A thin blanket, a cracked data tag that no longer worked. A metal charm shaped like a spiral, worn smooth from years of touch. Her species called themselves the Lurin, a people known for long memories and careful planning. They believed in preparation, in contracts, in never being without support. That belief had failed her. The contract that brought her people to Kelt 9 had ended 3 cycles ago. The adults had argued with station officials. Voices stayed calm, papers were reviewed, rules were checked. And then the decision came. The Lurin workers were no longer needed. Most of her people left on borrowed ships or returned to allied worlds. Some found sponsors. Some had families waiting. She had none of that. She was too young to work by station law, too old to be registered as cargo, and without a valid sponsor, she had no legal status. So the station did what stations always did. It ignored her. At first, she stayed in the open rest zones. She slept sitting up, pretending she was waiting for someone. Security drones passed by but did not stop. She was not causing trouble. She was not breaking rules. She simply did not belong. After 2 cycles, food dispensers stopped responding to her presence. Her access ban no longer registered. She learned to wait near others and hope leftovers were abandoned. After 3 cycles, a station official finally spoke to her. "You cannot remain here." The voice was not angry, just tired. She tried to explain. Her words came out slow and careful, translated by an old implant that sometimes lagged. "I have nowhere else." The official checked a screen. "That is unfortunate." Then he pointed toward the industrial ring. "Scrap sector, unregulated. If you stay anywhere, stay there." She did not know what scrap sector meant, but she nodded. She always nodded. That was how one stayed unnoticed. Now she stood at the edge of that place. The scrap sector was nothing like the rest of Kelt 9. The lights were dim. Gravity fluctuated slightly. The air smelled of metal and old coolant. Broken ship parts were stacked in floating grids, hull plates, engine rings, crates marked obsolete in a dozen languages. This was where things went when they were no longer useful. She walked slowly, careful with each step. Her species' legs bent differently from humans, but she had learned to adapt. She had learned many things lately. She found a narrow space between 2 storage frames and curled up there. The metal was cold. The station hummed around her. She tried to sleep. She dreamed of her homeworld's sky wide and green with slow-moving clouds. She dreamed of her mother's voice. When she woke, a drone was hovering nearby. "Unauthorized biological presence detected," it said. Her body stiffened. She sat up quickly. "I will leave," she said at once. "I am sorry." The drone paused, sensors adjusting. "Relocation recommended," it said, further inward. "This zone contains hazards." It floated away. She stayed where she was, because further inward meant deeper into scrap, where the pieces were larger and heavier, where shadows were thicker, where something else lived. She had noticed it earlier. A shape moving where no drones patrolled, a sound that was not mechanical. A human. She had seen humans before, loud ones, confident ones. Humans who walked through stations like they owned them, even when they clearly did not. This one was different. He lived among the scrap. His shelter was barely visible at first. A curved section of hull leaned against a support beam, patched with mismatched panels. Lights inside glowed soft and warm instead of bright white. She watched him from a distance. He was older than most humans she had seen. His hair was dark but threaded with gray. His movements were slow but sure, like someone who knew exactly how much effort to use. He worked with his hands, not drones, cutting, fitting, adjusting. He talked to himself sometimes, not loudly, just enough to fill the silence. She did not approach. She knew better. Humans were unpredictable, but so was hunger. After another cycle without food, her hands began to shake. Her vision blurred at the edges. Her body needed nutrients that station air could not provide. She waited until he stepped away from his shelter, carrying a box of parts toward a larger scrap pile. Then she moved. She did not mean to steal. She only wanted to see if there was anything he had left behind, something small, something forgotten. She reached the edge of his shelter and froze. A small heat plate sat near the entrance. On it was a container. The smell reached her senses before her mind could stop it. Food, her body reacted before thought. She stepped closer. The container was open. Inside were dense nutrient blocks unevenly cut. Human food modified, not perfect for her biology, but close enough. She hesitated. Then a shadow fell across the entrance. "Well," a voice said, calm and curious. "You're either very brave or very hungry." She turned slowly. The human stood there, box set down at his feet. He did not shout. He did not move toward her. He just waited. Her heart beat hard. She lowered her head slightly, a gesture of apology among her people. "I will leave," she said quickly. "I did not mean to." "Hey," he interrupted gently. "It's fine. Take a breath." She looked up, confused. "You didn't break anything," he continued. "And you didn't run off with it. That counts for something." He stepped past her and picked up the container, then held it out. "When was the last time you ate?" Her throat tightened. She tried to answer. The number felt too large to say. "I do not know." He nodded slowly, like that told him everything he needed. "All right," he said. "Then first things first." He placed the container back on the plate and adjusted the temperature. "Sit," he said, pointing to a crate. She obeyed before she could stop herself. He watched her carefully as she ate, not staring but not looking away either, like he was making sure she was real. When she finished, she felt warmth spread through her body. Strength returned to her limbs. She realized she was crying only when a drop fell onto her hands. She wiped it away quickly. "I am sorry," she said again. "For what?" he asked. "For being here." That made him pause. He leaned back against a support beam and crossed his arms. "Kid," he said, "this place is full of things that got thrown away. Being here doesn't make you wrong." She did not understand, but the words stayed with her. After a moment, he asked, "Do you have a name?" She hesitated. Names had weight. "Sail," he smiled slightly. "Sail," he repeated. "I'm Jonah." They sat in silence for a while, then he asked the question that changed everything. "So," he said, "what do you need?" No one had ever asked her that before, not officials. Not drones, not passing traders. Her answer came out small. "A place where I can stay." Jonah looked around the scrap sector, then he looked at his shelter, then he smiled, not wide, not proud, but thoughtful. "Well," he said, "we can work with that." And for the first time since her people left, Sail felt something unfamiliar rise in her chest. Not hope, but the quiet sense that maybe she was no longer invisible. Sail woke to a sound she did not recognize. It was not the hum of the station. Not the distant clang of scrap shifting in low gravity, not the soft buzz of drones. This sound was rhythmic: tap, scrape, whir, tap. She opened her eyes slowly. For a moment she forgot where she was. The space around her was dim but warm. A soft light glowed from a strip above her head, not harsh like station lights, but gentle. She was lying down. That alone made her heart race. She sat up too fast and felt dizzy. Her hand went to the metal floor beneath her. Solid, real, she was inside Jonah's shelter. Memories returned all at once. The food, the question, "What do you need?" She looked around. Jonah was already awake. He stood near the open side of the shelter, sleeves rolled up, working on a panel laid across two crates. Tools were spread out in neat lines. He moved with focus, like every motion had a reason. He noticed her stir. "Morning," he said without looking up, "or whatever passes for it on this station." Sail's voice came out quiet. "I slept." "Yeah," he replied. "That's usually what beds are for." She looked down. A bed. It was not like the ones from her homeworld. It was made from layered insulation, pressure foam, and fabric cut from old cargo restraints. But it supported her body correctly. It held her weight. It was comfortable. "I did not ask for this," she said, suddenly worried. Jonah finally looked at her. "I know," he said. "You needed it anyway." She did not know how to answer that. He returned to his work. The sound resumed. Tap, scrape, whir. Sail watched him. She had seen many species work before. Most relied on machines, on automation, on systems built by others long ago. Jonah worked differently. He touched everything, tested it, adjusted pieces again and again until they fit his understanding, not the design they were born with. After a while, she gathered courage. "What are you doing?" she asked. He smiled a little. "Building," he said, "but you already have a shelter." Jonah nodded. "I do." Then he picked up another panel and held it up, turning it sideways. "But this one isn't just for me anymore." She stared. Understanding came slowly, like dawn. "You mean for me?" He did not answer right away. He placed the panel carefully against a frame and measured it with his eyes. "I mean," he said, "you said you need a place to stay, not a corner, not a temporary spot, a place." Her hands tightened in the blanket. "That requires walls that hold," he he continued. Air that doesn't leak, power that won't cut out when the station sneezes. He looked at her then. And it requires something the station doesn't like to give. What? She asked. Permanence. Her chest felt tight. That is not allowed, she said softly. Jonah shrugged. Allowed is a flexible word. The scrap sector changed slowly over the next few cycles. At first, no one noticed. No one cared. Humans building things from junk was not new. Most species saw it as a cultural quirk. Entertaining, inefficient, but Jonah did not build fast. He built right. He showed Sale what he was doing, not like a teacher above a student, but like someone sharing a puzzle. This beam used to be part of a cargo rack, he said, tapping it. Rated for way more weight than it ever carried, still good. He let her hold tools, let her stabilize panels, asked questions about her biology. How much heat do you need to stay comfortable? What kind of light hurts your eyes? How does your breathing work under low pressure? No one had ever asked her such things before. She answered carefully, honestly, and Jonah adjusted everything. He layered insulation differently, tuned the air recyclers, changed the light spectrum until her eyes stopped aching. This doesn't look like much, he said once, gesturing around, but homes aren't about how they look, they're about how they feel. She did not know the human word home carried so much meaning. Others began to notice. A scavenger passed by one cycle and slowed. That thing still holding? The alien asked, pointing to the growing structure. Jonah didn't look up. So far. Huh. The scavenger lingered longer than expected. Another day, a station maintenance drone hovered nearby longer than its route required. Its sensors swept the area twice. Sale felt fear curl in her stomach. They will take it away, she whispered. Jonah tightened a bolt. Maybe, he said, but not today. Why? He paused, then answered honestly. Because they don't understand it yet. The structure grew. It was not large, but it was complete. Walls locked into place with pressure seals salvaged from decommissioned ships. A power loop built from 3 incompatible systems that Jonah somehow made cooperate. Sale watched him rewire a junction and asked, that should not work. Jonah grinned. Yeah, that's what makes it fun. She learned that humans did not see rules the same way others did. To most species, rules were limits. To humans, they were starting points. One cycle, Jonah handed her a small device. What is this? She asked. A key, he said. She froze. I cannot own property, she said quickly. I am not registered. It's not ownership, Jonah replied. It's access, big difference. She took it with shaking hands. When she pressed it to the door panel, the structure responded. Lights came on. Air systems adjusted to her presence. It recognized her. Sale stepped inside alone for the first time. The space was small but perfect. Her bed. A storage nook sized for her things. A viewport cut from reinforced glass showing the stars beyond scrap. She stood very still. This space existed because of her. Outside, Jonah leaned against a beam, arms crossed, watching her reaction without interrupting. She came back out slowly. It works, she said. Good, he replied. She looked at him, struggling to find words. Why are you doing this? She asked. Jonah scratched his beard. Humans are bad at watching problems and doing nothing, he said. Drives us crazy. That is not logical, she said. Yeah, he agreed. We're not great at that either. The station noticed 2 cycles later. A message pinged Jonah's console. Unregistered structure detected. Review pending. Sale saw it and felt cold. They will remove me, she said. Jonah read the message calmly. Not yet, he said. First they'll look. What happens when they look? He smiled, small, sharp, and very human. Then they'll see something they weren't expecting. That cycle, Sale lay awake in her new bed, listening to the steady hum of systems built from trash and stubbornness. For the first time in a long while, she was not afraid of being moved. She was afraid of being noticed. And somewhere deep inside her, a new thought formed, quiet, dangerous, and powerful. What if humans always did this? What if they built places where others were told none could exist? Outside her wall, Jonah worked late into the cycle, adding final reinforcements. Because humans did not just survive systems that forgot people. They built things the systems were forced to recognize, and soon the galaxy would have to look. The first sign came as a sound Sale had learned to fear, the hum of authority. It was different from the background noise of Kelt 9. Deeper, cleaner, purposeful. The kind of sound that meant someone important was moving with intent. She stood inside her small home, hands resting on the wall Jonah had built, and felt it vibrate slightly. They are coming, she said softly. Jonah, crouched near the power junction outside, did not look surprised. Yeah, he replied, figured it was about time. She stepped out to him, her movements careful. You said they would look first, she said. What if they do more than look? Jonah tightened a connector, then stood and wiped his hands on a cloth. Then we talk, he said, and if talking doesn't work, we show them the math. Sale did not understand that, but she trusted him enough not to ask again. Two station officials arrived with a security drone between them. They wore clean uniforms, no dust, no signs of scrap work. Their boots did not belong in this place. One was tall and thin, with skin the pale blue of the Velari species. The other was shorter, broad-shouldered, with thick scales along his neck, a grenth. The drone hovered forward, scanning. Unregistered structure detected, the Velari official said. This zone is not approved for permanent habitation. Jonah raised a hand slightly, friendly but firm. Morning, he said. Careful where you hover that thing, field interference from the power loop. The drone hesitated and adjusted position. The Grenth official frowned. That system should not be active, he said. Those components are incompatible, Jonah smiled. And yet, he said, here we are. Sale stood very still behind him. The Velari's eyes shifted to her. Identify, the official said. Sale's throat tightened. She opened her mouth. She's a resident, Jonah said calmly. That is not possible, the Velari replied. She is not registered. Jonah nodded. True, he said, but the residence is. The officials exchanged a glance. The drone scanned again, projecting data into the air. Structural integrity, stable. Improved, Jonah corrected. Original designs had a weak point here. He tapped a section. Sale watched as the officials stopped seeing junk. They started seeing work. Who authorized this? The Velari asked. No one, Jonah replied. That is a violation, Jonah shrugged. Only if it's unsafe. It is not zoned for demolition, Jonah finished, which means it's unregulated, which means if it meets code, it stands. The Grenth let out a low rumble. He's not wrong, he said. The Velari hesitated. Sale felt her legs shake. She wanted to disappear, to fold into herself and become small again, but Jonah stayed where he was. You built this, the Velari said, almost accusing. Yep, using scrap, mostly. For her, Jonah glanced back at Sale, for someone who needed it. Silence stretched. The drone beeped softly. Resident viability confirmed, it announced. Structure qualifies as permanent shelter. Sale's breath caught. Permanent. The word felt too big. The Velari closed his eyes briefly, then nodded. This will be reviewed, he said. But until then, no action will be taken. The officials turned to leave. Just before they did, the Grenth looked back. You humans, he said. You see things differently? Jonah smiled. We kind of have to. The station did not tear the home down. Instead, it watched. Sale felt the change immediately. Drones passed more often. Scans lingered. But no one told her to leave. She began to breathe easier. One cycle later, someone else came. A thin alien with dull gray skin stood at the edge of the scrap sector, holding a bag much like Sale once had. They did not cross the line at first. They just watched. Sale noticed and felt something twist inside her. They look like I did, she said quietly. Jonah followed her gaze. Yeah, he said. They are afraid, she added. Jonah nodded. Most people are, he said, right up until someone gives them a reason not to be. The next cycle, another came, then another. They did not ask Jonah for food. They did not touch his tools. They only asked one question. Is it possible? Jonah answered honestly. It depends how much scrap you're willing to work with. The scrap sector changed again, not fast, not loudly, but steadily. Jonah helped where he could. Not by building everything himself, but by showing others how. Hold it like this. That piece can still carry load. Doesn't matter what it used to be, matters what it can be now. Sale watched him work with others and realized something important. Humans did not just build things, they taught confidence. She began helping too, translating, measuring, explaining needs. She found she liked being useful. One cycle, she caught her reflection in a panel and barely recognized herself. She stood straighter. Her eyes were brighter. She belonged somewhere. The station council issued a notice, scrap sector habitation under review. Fear rippled through the small community. Sale felt it too. They will stop this, she said. Jonah read the notice and sighed. Maybe, he said. Or maybe they'll realize stopping it costs more than allowing it. She looked at him. You planned this, she said slowly. He did not deny it. Systems don't like surprises, he said, but they really don't like fixing problems they ignored. That night Sale lay awake listening to the quiet sounds of many homes instead of one. Power hums, soft voices, laughter. The scrap sector was no longer empty. It was alive, and the station could not pretend it was just trash anymore. Sale placed her hand against the wall Jonah had built and felt steady warmth. For the first time, she understood something about humans. They did not wait for permission to care. They built proof. And once that proof existed, the galaxy had no choice but to accept it. The scrap sector was no longer quiet. It did not become loud all at once. There were no alarms, no sudden crowds. Instead, it filled slowly, like water rising where no one thought it could. Sale noticed it first in the mornings. There were more footsteps now, more voices low and careful. The hum of power lines stretched farther than before. Light glowed from places that had once been dark. Homes, not pretty ones, not official ones, but real, built from leftovers. Built by hands, the station did not like that. The council meeting was announced without warning. Mandatory review, scrap sector habitation status. Jonah read the notice in silence. Sale watched his face, trying to read what he felt. "They are scared," she said. Jonah nodded. "Yeah, of us. Of what we represent," he replied. That answer stayed with her. The council chamber was large and cold, designed to make visitors feel small. Sale walked beside Jonah, her steps steady even though her heart was not. Rows of officials sat above them, elevated by design. Screens glowed with data streams and regulation codes. The Velari official from before was there. So was the Grenth. Others too, many species, many rules. "This session will address the unauthorized expansion of habitation within the scrap sector," the chair being announced. Sale's hands curled at her sides. Jonah stepped forward. "With respect," he said, "there's nothing unauthorized about people living where the station abandoned responsibility." A murmur moved through the chamber. "That zone was never meant for habitation," an official snapped. "No," Jonah agreed. "It was meant for disposal." He paused. "Turns out people don't dispose so easily." Screens lit up with images of the scrap sector. Homes, lights, heat signatures. Sale saw herself there, small but present. "You are creating precedent," the chair being said. Jonah nodded. "That's usually how change works." Arguments followed, about safety, about liability, about order. Jonah answered everyone. He spoke simply, calmly, without anger. "These structures meet code. Power use is lower than predicted. Injury rates are 0. You didn't plan for people here," he said. "But now they are. Ignoring them again won't make them disappear." Sale realized something then. Humans did not fight systems by shouting. They fought by being reasonable until the system had no excuse left. The turning point came from an unexpected voice. The Grenth stood. "What is the cost of removal?" he asked. The chamber paused, screens updated, resource expenditure, labor hours, risk factors, numbers climbed. "High," the Velari admitted. "And the cost of allowance." Lower numbers appeared, silence followed. The Grenth looked down at Jonah. "You built something that is cheaper to accept than to destroy," he said. Jonah smiled faintly. "Humans are practical," he said, the chair being exhaled slowly. "Temporary recognition will be granted," they announced. "Under observation." Sale felt her knees weaken, temporary but real. The scrap sector celebrated quietly. No loud music, no banners, just shared food, soft laughter, relief. Sale stood in the doorway of her home and watched others pass by. They nodded to her now, spoke her name. She was no longer invisible. Jonah sat nearby, repairing a tool that didn't really need fixing. "You did this," she said. "We did this," he corrected. She looked at the homes, the lights, the lives. "What happens next?" she asked. Jonah leaned back and looked up at the station hull above them. "Next," he said, "the galaxy starts paying attention." Far away, beyond Kelt 9, reports were already moving through data nets. Human-built habitation in unregulated zones, unexpected stability, low cost, high resilience. Observers would read them and wonder. That night, Sale lay in her bed and stared at the stars through her viewport. She was still afraid, but it was a different kind now. Not fear of being thrown away, fear of how much could change. And for the first time, that fear felt like hope.